to give us some fresh wind from Iceland and tell us more on the current condition on the civic sector in Iceland. So, Margaret, floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Are you hearing me now?
If you could speak a little bit louder, let's just move. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'll try to speak as loudly as I can. I'm actually using my phone since my computer does not have a microphone at the moment, or it isn't working. Let me just tell you a bit about the CSOs in Iceland. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Icelandic Human Rights Center, which I represent. We're an independent NGO, sort of an umbrella organization. We have 15 affiliates, and what we do is to promote human rights in Iceland. We comment on law bills, we write additional reports to international human rights bodies, and we organize human rights education and publishing, as well as seminars and conferences. And we try to operate according to the UN Paris Principles on national human rights institutions, since we do not have such an institution in Iceland. And ever since our establishment, we have tried to, well, we're lobbying actually for becoming a national human rights institution. We are also the national contact point for CSOs from beneficiary countries, seeking Icelandic partners for EEA grant-funded projects. So you see our emails. You can send us an email if you're looking for partners, and we can then refer you to well, organizations which we believe will be suitable for your project. Well, civil society organizations in Iceland, they see themselves as a necessary part of democratic society, of course. And I think in general, they are seen actually as playing a crucial role in moving along development and aiding authorities to achieve goals of peace and democracy, good governance, even if, well, often we feel that we are not listened to enough by the government, but still they know that they must include us, and they must at least consult us. And well, it differs between governments, of course, how much note they take of our comments, but still we are recognized as a necessary part of society. Yeah, so I would also like to say that Icelandic CSOs are really professional. We have very knowledgeable people working for the organization. For every organization, they offer research, well-grounded information, and of course advice to the government on issues of concern, even if we feel often that the government maybe does not react as we would want them to, but still they are being listened to. And they are very active in campaigning and advocating for necessary changes. We have very strong organizations here working for various well, human rights of various groups, and they are very vigilant in monitoring and pointing out issues in need of address. Also, I would say that the civil society organizations, they are actually free to criticize the government. They do not have to fear repercussions. Even if it's true that most, or at least very many organizations are government funded, still they do not hesitate to criticize. We also have the CSO sector, I would say, has a very long-standing experience of working together. We have often joined forces for various issues, and I'd like to mention the women's movement, especially because we have a very strong women's movement in Iceland. And we have, I forgot, of course, to, so let me see. Okay. For some reason, one slide seems to be missing from the presentation. But still, to carry on with the women's movement, we have been able to bring many of our issues. We have managed to have, like we have now a new legislation on abortion and also other issues that we have been fighting for. We have been really successful. We also have a very strong movement of disabled.
Sorry, Margaret, could you please, sorry to interrupt you, could you please speak up a little, because still there are participants who can't hear you well or at all. So if you could speak up a little bit, so just for those who, and they have their volume max, so it means that, yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was just saying that we have a very strong. Most of the organizations here are really strong, and we have a very strong women's movement, for example, and we understand actually the necessity of working together. So even if we, all of us are not exactly in agreement on everything, we always try to work together, and we manage to work together successfully. So that's a very important thing. Now, I just like, as you see, I have a list of organizations. I just made a list of various organizations just to show you the range and variety, so you can see it on the slide. We have a very strong LGBTI organization, and they have actually, single-handedly, I'd like to say, changed the attitude of people in Iceland towards LGBTI people. We also have, like I said before, we have a very strong women's movement. We have the Women's Shelter, Stigamót, which is a counseling and information center on sexual violence. We have Women in Iceland, which is an organization of women of foreign origin. We have the Women's Rights Association. We have the Women's Counseling, which is free legal and social work advice for women. And a very strong association of disabled in Iceland, and many other organizations that you see here. We have the Child Safety House. We have a representative actually at this meeting, as well as from the Women's Rights Association and the Women's Counseling. So hopefully they will be able to contribute at a later stage. And we have someone also from the Reykjavik City Human Rights Office. And so you see, I know that you will be getting the slides from me, so you can see what kind of organizations we have. And of course, we have many more. I just named these as examples. I don't really think I have anything more to say, but if you have questions, I will try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Do you have any questions to Margaret? I know that some of you couldn't hear her well. Unfortunately, Margaret can deliver this presentation only from her phone from technical reasons. So that's the maximum she could do to be heard by you. But do you have any questions to Margaret on the Icelandic civic sector, or maybe you are looking for a partner from Iceland and directly you would like to ask Margaret for a recommendation? That's time for you. ask her a question.
Yeah, I see one question here. Of course, I can provide the email of the organizations, and I gave our email info@humanrights.is. So if you send me an email, I can send you email of all organizations that you want.
Yes, so you can.
We do have a list of organizations, so it is, well, it's really easy to provide you with a list of contacts and organizations working in a similar area as you are. So info@Human Rights is the place to start, and then I will provide you with all information you need.
Margaret, there is a question. If I can give your direct email address to our participants.
Yeah, I can actually see the questions. I just cannot answer them.
Okay,
manually.
so I will paste your email address.
Yeah, my email address is Margaret, MARGRET @humanrights.is.
Okay.
Yeah, Anna has already given my email address.
Yeah, already pasted.
As I mentioned also, I see another question on how the organizations are funded. Well, most are government funded, but also many are run by membership fees and of course grants from both individuals and companies and so on, donations. But in general, or most of the funding comes from the government.
Okay. Okay, so there is still one question from Łukasz.
Well, I would say both, but most of the people running the Association of Disabled in Iceland are disabled people themselves. Mm-hmm. And they are actually a very strong organization, and they have this slogan that saying that nothing should be discussed on disability issues without disabled people at the table.
Okay. And last question, because we don't have more time, on the NGO support center. Is there any in Iceland?
No, there's not really an NGO support center, but there is an organization called Almannaheil, which actually is, well, has many NGOs as well, partners or working affiliates rather, and they are working on well, strengthening the NGO sector in Iceland.
Oh, okay.
I can give you a contact for them as well. I think actually, well, I'm not sure if I should spell the name, because I could give you their email, I think their website, but then I would have to spell the name and it's very long.
But you can as well write to Margaret, and she can send you as well the link. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Margaret. And I would like to invite Cila to tell us about about Norwegian situation, situation on the civil society organization in Norway. So the floor is yours, Cila.
Thank you very much, Anna. I hope everyone can hear me well. I assume yes, okay. Thank you very much, Anna, for inviting me to give this short presentation. I'm quite happy to be here at home, in my home, but it is quite interesting circumstances. I hope you're all doing well in the comfort of your homes and are all staying healthy and well. So I represent the Norwegian Helsinki Committee. This is a human rights organization, much like the Icelandic Human Rights Center. We work to promote human rights and democracy in the OSCE area. That's the former Soviet countries and Europe. Most of all. And we do have some similar work methods as the Icelandic Human Rights Center, so I'm not going to go into the details there. we have been assigned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have this role as a contact point for bilateral relations under the Active Citizens Funds. And we've been doing this since 2005, so it's we've got quite a long experience with this. We do this because we believe that civil society plays an active role in building democracy in a country. And organizations have this channel of influence and create arenas for people to become active and engaged in developing their own societies. So what we do as a contact point, we work in accordance with the aims of the Active Citizens Funds to strengthen civil society and empower vulnerable groups. So we promote partnerships for this. We support in the search for partners for cooperation, and we provide information about the funds both in Norway and in the beneficiary countries. And since bilateral cooperation is one of the two main aims of the EEA and Norway grants, and because we see that Europe today is facing quite a number of challenges, and quite honestly, with this corona crisis, we believe that all these challenges are going to be even stronger. When we look around and we see the spread of fake news and right-wing populism, and we see the collapse of democratic principles, we also believe that these challenges cannot be solved alone, and that these challenges cannot be solved without your input as civil society organizations. So that's why Hilde, my colleague in the lower part of the picture, and me, we work to find proper and good partners for the projects that you have. In a nutshell, to give you a short perspective on civil society in Norway, I would say that it's quite similar to what Margaret has said about the Icelandic civil society. It's very strong, it's vibrant, and it has a long tradition. It has a long history. It started as grassroots movements, and it started from an organic need for people to get together and work together and cooperate in order to build their communities. So that was the starting point of civil society a long time ago in Norway.
Sorry, Chila, to interrupt you, but we have the information that you are on the voice problems again, and so could you like a little bit speak up? Maybe it will help for Brunhilde to be better.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So yeah, it's similar to the situation in Iceland. We have a strong civil society with a long tradition and a long history. And yeah, it's a country of 5 million people, and it has more than 100,000 not registered organizations, but actually active organizations. So it just gives you a picture of how diverse and vibrant it can be. And in order to ensure, oh, it just moved by itself. There. In order to ensure democratic development and an open public debate, you need to have organizations that have the capacity and the possibility to engage the government on critical issues. And as Margaret said, in Iceland, we do have the same thing here in Norway as well. So we can cooperate with the government, have funding from the government, but at the same time also be a strong critic of the government. And this is a recognized role that organizations have. And when you look at the entire spectrum of organizations, you can see that there are, in a way, two main groups. One working on service providing, they have a service providing role, and one having a democratic role, a democratic functioning, so to say. And the service providing function is naturally a historical one. These organizations have provided services for a number of years on fields such as drug abuse, mental health, care for the elderly, child protection, care for the handicapped. And many of these organizations developed into strong institutions. so to say. And on the other hand, you have the organizations with this democratic concern, democratic role. They are organizations that set the agenda for the public discourse. They promote the rights and the interests of the social groups that they represent. They form the public opinion. But we also see that this division is somewhat artificial, because many organizations working in service provision also have this school of democracy role, so to say, where they don't only provide the services for their target groups, but they also represent the interests in the political sphere, so that they try to improve the policies that are related to these target groups. So the competencies and the contributions that these organizations can have in projects, they are, as you see these points on your screen right now. We've asked many of the organizations that we work together, what is it that they can contribute with? And you see here, it's quite a wide range of issues that they can provide as partners in projects. And just as Margaret, I thought also that I could give you just a few, very, very few examples of organizations and what type of capacity building activities they carry out as their core activities. We have the Center for Equality in the city of Hamar. They provide competency enhancement and process guidance to public authorities, private companies, organizations on gender equality and non-discrimination. They have trainings, they do events, they teach law, and it's important to see that they cover not just organizations, but they actually cover the sphere of public work, actually, which is really good. And it shows you the level of cooperation between authorities and organizations. We have the Oslo Center, which is quite an interesting organization. One of the former prime ministers of Norway is part of the staff here. They provide democracy assistance. And they do this through a method that they describe as the Oslo Center approach, where they work together through dialogue and trainings to strengthen democratic institutions and processes. And then they work together with political parties from other countries, with parliaments in other countries and governments in other countries, and also civil society in other countries. So then again, you have this, this approach to bring together civil society and decision-making bodies in countries. The Royal Norwegian Society for Development work with poverty reduction and help local economic growth through business development. This is quite a nice approach that they do for sustainable use of local natural resources by helping local communities, just reaching out to the grassroots in the countries that they work with on an international level. They work in Norway as well, not just internationally. And then we also have the Health and Human Rights Info, which is also quite a nice organization. It's a resource database for information that they provide freely about consequences of human rights violations on the mental health in the context of disaster, war, and conflicts. And they have one very good tool and also online training on gender-based violence, which is quite interesting. If you're interested in that, it's actually worth visiting. And one other example, the Norwegian Association of Youth with Disabilities. This is run also just in connection to one of the questions a bit earlier, by youth with disabilities. It's quite a strong, very, very nice organization. We know personally some of the people who work there, and they do capacity building for their member organizations, because this is an umbrella organization with smaller youth organizations for youth with disabilities. But they also work with the decision makers and public services to raise awareness about the issues connected to disabilities in the public sphere. And lastly, what I want to mention is that all these organizations that I mentioned here, they are registered in a database that we provide under the Active Citizens Funds. So these organizations are organizations that are open for cooperation under the Active Citizens Funds. They have registered in the database by themselves, and they use the tools that we provide to find partners. And I strongly recommend all of you, if you're not so lucky to find a partner through this matchmaking today, you can still go in on the ngonorway.org, which you see right here is one of the tools that we set up to help provide information and help in finding partners. On the ngonorway.org, we have a lot of information for both Norwegian organizations and from the beneficiary countries on tips and advice how to go about in contacting partners and what to think about when trying to develop a project. And through that page, you can also access this database where we currently have between 50 or 60 Norwegian organizations registered in different fields, in civic education, in women's rights, children's rights, human rights, civic participation. Yeah, you know, all the spheres that are covered in the Active Citizens Funds. And you can also register your organizations in case some Norwegian organizations would like to find you. So this is one of the tools that we're quite proud of that we have. And if you still don't manage to find a partner or contact someone, you have our contact information here on the lower part of this page. And also, for more information, just the ngonorway.org and also the FMO's general page on the E and Norway grants. But should you have questions about partnerships under the Active Citizens Funds and finding a partner in Norway, you can come to us.
Thank you very much,
that is what we do.
And now we have a few questions. Can you see them in our chat?
Yes, I just have to scroll back to see which one is the first one.
Do you have any Do you have any questions to Cila? It's now 2 minutes for you.
What percentage of NGOs are professional with stable staff and finance in Norway? Well, most of them have a professional staff. Most of them have at least one or two employees for the organization, but a lot of them rely also on voluntary work. So it's people who offer their time voluntarily to the organization after their work hours, or it's students involved. But as Margaret mentioned as well, in Norway we have also these organizations that are more or less professional.
Okay.
Let me just see. Yeah, most NGOs in Norway have professional staff on national level, get public support, membership fees. Yeah, thank you, Sturla, for answering the question. How it looks like on local level, small local organizations. The local level is also quite strong. Even if you see sometimes, like, for example, Naturvernforbundet, I just don't remember the name in English now, Friends of Nature or something like that. They work on protection of nature and climate change issues. There's one national organization and it has local branches, but these local branches actually function more or less independently of the national organization, the one that brings them together. So there's a lot of independence on the local level as well, which is quite good. For non-service provide most national level money, also regional level branches. Yeah, thank you. For non-service provider CSOs, how public funding is organized, on what basis define the government support through yearly calls, and how grant amounts are set up. Well, it very much depends on who is giving the grant. It can be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have some grants that are announced annually that you can, as an organization, can apply to, or they have 3-year grants that they can give. Then you have other departments like they've just changed some of the names of the ministries. The Ministry of Local for local authorities and modernization, they have grants. Now they moved it to the culture, I think. Yeah, they moved it to the Ministry of Culture now. Grants that go for minorities and the national minorities in Norway, for awareness-raising projects that increase the visibility of these minority cultures in the schoolwork. So the grants are set up based on the political priorities of the government, but they are open for organizations to apply.
Okay, we have to move, unfortunately, to the next part. Thank you very much, Cilla, for answering. If you have more questions, you can always write to Cilla, but as well, we will try to do some kind of frequently asked question after the our webinar. So thank you very much, Cilla. And we have to move now to another country from our donor states, and I will do my best to present this country. So Liechtenstein. So I would like to tell you a few words, just very briefly, on the civic sector in Liechtenstein. So I based all the information are based on following reports, and I really highly recommend you those reports to get more. And find out more on Liechtenstein and how the civic sector human rights situation is looking now in this country. A few facts and figures on the Principality of Liechtenstein. So the population is almost 40,000 people. So this is one of the smallest countries in European Union, and area of 160 square meters. So also like this is one of I think the size as well of the one of the regions, for example, in Poland. And in this small area we have 11 municipalities. But at the same time we have a quite active civic sector. So in 2004, we had there 129 registered associations, but in 2017 we had more than 326 associations. So you can see how it the difference, but you have to be aware of the fact that some of the organizations are registered in the trade register, so that's why they are not covered by the statistics on the associations. And when it comes to the as well the most the civil society organizations with the largest number of members is Alpine Club, so it's around 3,000 members, so quite impressive. How, and that was the facts and figures, and now what's the quality of civil society organizations in Liechtenstein? So mostly they are based on volunteering and financially supported by the state and municipalities, and you can establish a civil society organization in Liechtenstein as association, and as well you can enter the as such you can enter the trade register. The civil society organizations do not require special recognition by the state, and they have the right to pursue, represent its interests, so take part in the public hearing or in the legislative procedures, and also they can establish their own action or referendum, and most of them are active in the field of sport So if you are looking for a partner or federation on sports, so we highly recommend you as well to check the databases on the civil society organizations in Liechtenstein. But there are also organizations that focus on human rights issues like women's rights, LGBT plus people rights, or foreigners' rights. And I would like as well to tell you more on the Liechtenstein Women's Network that has currently 70 different civil society organizations dealing with women's rights, and this network is quite well organized. So as well, you can find out more on the websites about them. So the most maybe frequently asked question, where to look for a partner from Liechtenstein. So I would recommend you these two tools to search for them. Of course, all of them speak German, but you can always find an organization that speak English, so you can use these both languages to communicate with them. So good luck with finding a partner from Liechtenstein. Unfortunately, I can't tell you more, but of course, just having any questions on how to contact with them, or maybe I can recommend you also more researches on or documents on the civic sector condition in Liechtenstein. So just contact me and I'll try to provide you more information on that. Okay, but now let's listen to Lidia Kuczmierowska more on the civic sector condition in Poland. So I'm giving now the floor to our next speaker.
Anya, there was also a question about availability of your presentations on Liechtenstein organization. Will it be available somewhere? Well, Anya has gone for a while, but
yes, of course. All presentations will be available, sent to you. So just don't worry if you missed something or you have more questions. Everything will be sent and available. Thank you.
Okay, so now I will present this brief and subjective review of civic sector in Poland. It is brief and subjective because we have more or less 10 minutes for this presentation. And since my background is science and economics, it will be supported with the different data. So, when we look at the third sector, non-profit sector, civil society sector, we first have to face the problem of definition and numbers. There are two main sources of statistics related to civil society organizations and the sector, which is Central Statistic Office Statistics Poland and Klon-Jawor Association, non-profit organizations that has been researching non-governmental organizations since almost 20 years. And if we compare numbers, they are different. First, because Statistics Poland take into consideration a broader group of the different organizational and legal forms. And secondly, because both institutions use different methodologies. So, but anyway, still it is between like 150,000 active entities. So if we compare it to the Poland's population, it is not that much, especially after the presentation on the Norwegian civil society sector, which seems for me really very impressive in terms of this civil society initiative and organizations saturation. Okay. But anyway, this number each year is growing. So I hope that in sometimes we will reach this maybe Norwegian level of a number of organizations per 10,000 population. And of course, we face the same problem of blurred borders. Here I have a picture coming from articles, famous 5 years ago article of Celem and Sokołowski from Johns Hopkins University, who argued that there is time to change the definition of the third sector, civil society sector, because of this blurred border. Some organizations, some entities are a part of, in a way, sometimes two sectors. So we have to look at it really broader. And what is also important, there is a part of civil society sector which can't be so easily measured and catch, because these are all these human actions that are not institutionalized, that are not formalized, but nowadays I think they play more and more important role. What is the basic? What are the basic issues and problems of civil society organizations? This is money and people. I think these are kind of usual and universal problems and subjects of interest. So money makes also a non-profit world go round, and here there's a table which shows sources of revenues of Polish non-profit organizations. These are the data coming from this Statistics Poland, and I will not, of course, present line by line of this table. Rather, I would like to pay attention at some trends. So more money in the sector is available in each year, and although the situation of specific particular organizations may be different, in general, more money is in the sector. You can see it in the lower line, this amount in Polish zloty. So not only the total amount is growing, but also average and median revenue of an organization is growing, and also the share of organization with the lowest budget is decreasing. Still, disparities in terms of revenues is a very visible problem, but when I looked at data from other countries, this disparity is a kind of universal issue. It is not only something that is specific for Poland. If we look at public funding, as we may see, the kind of notion or myth quite often repeated in Poland that Polish non-profit sector is dependent on public money. Actually, it is not true, because it maintains on the level of 40% of total revenues. And even if we look deeper into last data, we may observe that, for example, the share of funding from central administration has decreased, while funding from local governments increased. And I here wrote failure of social economy with question marks, because if we look at market revenues, for example, although a lot of money was pumped into different social economy initiatives, if you look at overall statistics, it is not visible as an important source of money. I mean, sales of services. Membership dues for years have been at the level of 5-6%, although it is a source of income for like more than 60% of organization, but the amount is not that big. What is a kind of positive trend is that the only source of funding with growing share are private funds. So this is individual philanthropy, corporate donations, and their share is not that big. And I think that it is also becoming strength of non-profit organizations that are more and more effective at raising money from private sources. Is it much different than in other countries? Here you have a dollar note, because these are statistics coming from the US sector, which always have been a kind of important reference point for non-profits. So if we look, for example, at the share of private funding in case of the US sectors, is at the level of 14%. And these are the data again from more or less 2016. And it is not much bigger, in fact, than in case of Polish organizations. So we may think that this private philanthropy maybe is not in such a tragic state as we sometimes may think and believe. People in organization. People in organization, again, some tables just to have a look. But what is important from this table? That the number of members of organization is decreasing, the total number and average number. And also that the average number of volunteers in NGOs is decreasing. However, the total number of volunteers has increased. So it may mean that the competition for volunteers in a way is growing, because the number of people who want to join organization also is growing, is still not enough for needs of organization. More and more organizations employ paid staff, but again, the share of employment in non-profit organizations is not that high. It is below 1%, and in other countries it's usually more than 1%. And I also presented here another data that some problem of getting new motivated people in organization can be also reflected in the composition of the executive board that remains the same. So we may look at it as a strength, the stability of the management, but we don't know if it's not a problem of succession. What problems are identified by NGOs themselves? The problems are the same: how to raise more and more money, and in general, organizations complain about different problems with getting funding, and it has been a recurring problem for like 20 years. And another, attracting and retaining competent and motivated people, which, as I observe, is a growing problem in the non-profit sector, because it is a challenge for many NGO managers how to motivate people non-financially, because average salary in non-profit sector is below average salary in Poland. It has never been bigger than 80% of average Polish salary. What is not perceived as a big problem, inadequacy of law, any problems resulting from law. Only 35% of NGOs believe it is a problem. Lack of cooperation between organizations and negative image of NGOs, lack of social trust. This is what NGOs think. But when you look into some data, you may have a little bit different perspective, because now in Poland we have such a situation that each day there's a new law produced, and it is really difficult to follow this changes. Grant Thornton calculated that in 2019 they produced over 20,000 pages of new legislation, and if someone would like to get to know all this new regulation, they calculated one should read at least 80 pages of legal regulations each day. As far as cooperation between organizations is concerned, 60% of organizations declare cooperation with other organizations. However, contacts in practice are rather occasional, and number of partners a particular organization cooperates with is limited. The average is 2. Negative image of NGOs. Actually, data shows something different. 54 of Poles trust NGOs, and it is higher percentage than in case of businesses, public sectors, and other groups. And here the last slide with a kind of open list of challenges that may be, of course, prolonged. In my opinion, the real challenge is instability of law, and I talked about it previously. And if you somehow combine it with the lack of strong monitoring and advocacy centers, it means in practice a lot of different problems for non-profit organizations. Another challenge is politicization of public policies. No matter which parties rule, these public policies are rarely neutral, politically neutral in a way. And it also generates different problems for organizations, also in terms of public funding. Individual philanthropy, although the statistics are encouraging, is still at early stage of its development, and many organizations have still to learn how to get funding from individuals, from corporations. Trust, yes, people trust NGOs, but do not understand the reality of NGOs. There is, for example, such a notion that if you work for good cause, you should be honored somehow to work for free. But actually, organizations do have to cover different costs. Cooperation and partnership is more often declared than practiced. So I think it is something maybe Polish organizations can learn from organizations from Iceland, since as we could hear, it is a strong point somehow of the sector in Ireland. And a slow process of professionalization of NGO activities, both in terms of service delivery and management. Of course, these changes can be observed, but I think they are too slow compared to the pace of technology development, to changes in society, to changes of business practice, and so on. And of course, each of us may have slightly different open list of challenges. This is not the end. And I think that this Active Citizen Fund program is actually important in the context of these challenges, because some of them somehow may be addressed through sectoral projects that will be launched soon. So That was that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Unfortunately, we do not have time to ask Lydia questions, but you have her email in case you would like to find out more. And I would like now to give floor to Andrzej, who will tell us more on the sectoral project call for applications. So for sure, the part that Polish civil society were looking forward to. So the floor is yours, Andrzej. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya, and welcome everyone. I'm going to briefly tell you about our call for proposals, and I would like to start, reminding you that in terms of our program, we have like 2 thematic projects call for proposals and only one call for proposals for sectoral projects. So if you are thinking about supporting the sectors, if you think about supporting civic movements, this is the only opportunity. If not now, then never. Lydia mentioned that the money and the people are one of the main challenges in terms of the third sector in Poland. So definitely there is this amazing opportunity now to take care of the money. I'm going to briefly tell you about some main rules. I'm aware that I'm not able to tell you every single detail, but we have all different forms of supporting you when you will be applying for this money. So I hope it will be we can cover at least some general information, and then there will be a chance to clarify all the details. I think one of the most crucial thing is that with our particular call for proposals, we need to look at the third sector from like a broader perspective. We need to have some sort of helicopter view on the sector, helicopter view on the civic movement, on industry that you are operating with, not thinking about only your organization and your particular beneficiaries. So I had this, very simple slide telling that we are really looking for some systemic actions. We are looking about some, some initiatives which can have an impact on the sector, which can have an impact on the broader group of the organization. So if you will be, thinking about the project, please consider this. And I think please consider having, strong partnerships with other organizations, because I can hardly imagine having a real impact if you don't have partners. When you will be applying, you need to at least let us know which one of the 5 types of the activities you are going to focus on. You can cover a few different activities, but it is extremely important for us to know which one is the leading. And I'm going to now tell you briefly about these 5 different activities. So first of all, it is all this traditional function of the second tier organization, of support organization. It means supporting other NGOs on different levels and different ways, delivering trainings, delivering some capacity building expertise, and so on. So this is going to be the first one. Secondly, we are looking for projects that are going to tackle this important element, which is monitoring law, especially now, with public policies, looking after the process of developing law. But as long as it is related to the third sector of the group of organizations of the civic movement itself, I think it's crucial to always have, bear in mind that you need to focus on a broader perspective. Then we will move forward towards the third activity, which is advocacy. And I think we can distinguish advocacy as a sort of ongoing actions taken, on the regular level, and some urgent initiatives, some urgent actions that could be taken if there is such a need, if there is an urgent situation that needs kind of response. So this is the third activity. With the fourth one, these are the all, raising awareness initiatives, but the raising awareness of the sector itself. So clarifying to the general public what are the organizations about, what are the overheads, how the fundraising works. These are all these important, elements that we can focus on. And if we think about these 5 different activities, I want you to look at this 2 priority elements, especially with the first one. That is important if there is a kind of priority really to look for those organizations that you are going to support with a little experience, located, and in some areas that they have like limited access to services. It is important if you are thinking about this first area. And in general, with all these 5 different types of activity, it is important to think to have a partner. This is not obligatory, but is strongly recommended for us to have a partnership. I think I'm sorry for this, but I was missing the 5th activity. So the 5th one is a kind of different, because it's about research, analysis, opinions, and it applies to all these 4 activities mentioned above. So this is a bit different comparing to this 4 different activities, but it is also important. So again, think about this priority to have a partner, to work on in a collaborative way with others when you will be applying. What's the money on the table? We are thinking about this is the money that you can apply for, between 25,000 and 125 for the main project, but you can also apply for some extra money, which is going to be 12.5 thousand that you can apply for in terms of your institutional development. So your own organization capacity building. I think it's extremely, it is a wonderful opportunity that you can apply for money that you can really invest in your own organization. And I'm going to tell you 2 more words about that later on. The third money that is also in your disposal, this is only for partnerships with your donor state entities. So if you have a partner in Liechtenstein, Norway, or Iceland, you can apply for extra money. So it is a nice opportunity. Co-financing, at least you need to have 10% of your project's budget covered by your own contribution, and half of this must be financial, and the rest you can estimate using your voluntary work. So these are the rules in terms of your own contributions to the project. I would like to briefly remind you that this institutional development of your own organization now, of your capacity building actions taken, it is extremely wonderful opportunity to use this money, to apply for this money. But we strongly recommend to think about this particular component as a wonderful opportunity that you can spend, to think about your development, to think about your organization, not as a sort of kind of separate project, because you need to have some sort of needs assessment analysis, and it must be as some sort of small projects that you need to submit. Third, okay, and I'll move forward to the next slide. Just wanted to remind you that if we're thinking about having partnerships with other organizations, with other entities, there is the money only apply, the extra money only apply if we are thinking about having partner from donor state countries. But again, you can have partners also from Poland. You can have partners from bordering countries of Poland. You can have a partner again from the beneficiary states. But we strongly recommend to spend this time that we have now to work on this partnership to be vibrant. So you to make sure you share the common goal, that you really are going to work on in a kind of collaborative way with your partners. What's the timeline? Actually, we were about to launch our call for proposal next week, and so far we know that we need a few more days just for some extra tests, some technical issues to be solved. So when you will be back from long May weekend, whatever it means, then we'll start to get your application. So just after in the very first days of May, we'll start receiving your application. I mean the outline of the projects, and till the 22nd of June you can submit this outline of the projects. Then there will be a second stage, so we will be asking to deliver this detailed project. And please remember that the project could be 1 year, could be 2 year, could be 3 year time. So something between 12 months and 36 months. And if we look at the calendar, it means that the projects can start at the very not earlier than in January 2021, and they must end, not later than February 2024. So that's the timeline, and we are going to be with you, on this way, and we'll try to help and to do what we can. So we'll offer you like 2 webinars. We are going to record the video. And there will be a workshop in Warsaw. I strongly believe we will be able to have this regular workshop, not again, online meeting. We will be taking questions while you will be sending any questions, and then putting the answers on the website. And also we have like dedicated phone number, and we also have a dedicated email address for all of you that you can bring up your questions. This is not 24/7 hotline, but definitely we'll do what we can to answer any question. However, just one remark, because there are some people calling and telling us that this is the project. Would it fit to this grant scheme? And this is not really the question that we can answer. Please remember that with this model, we can only tell you what's the criteria, what's the things that you need to remember, but we are not allowed even to tell you, yes, this project definitely would fit to our frames, to our the scope of the project. So more or less, I think these are the key information about our call for proposal. And I'm sure there will be there's a kind of number of detailed questions that you can have in your mind, but I hope there will be a chance to clarify all these issues, all this your question on the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrzej. Questions to Andrzej on the sectoral call for proposals could be asked just after my 3 slides. If you could listen to me once, since I would like to just tell you more on the bilateral cooperation and regional action. So, but of course, feel free to write down your answers on chat. Andrea and Lydia are still there, so we can also answer many questions using chat. Okay, so very briefly, since we have 10 minutes to finish our first part, so what about the bilateral cooperation? So we try to provide as many events, workshops, webinars, seminars as possible. Of course, due to current situation, we can organize it only online. So we do our best to as well to face this current challenge. But as well, we have in our plans study visits for grant recipients to the donor states. Hopefully, we will be able to organize these study visits that we planned, and as well workshops and meetings on the cooperation. So we try to help you to find your project partner, but as well we try to help you to and give a floor, give a space for you to exchange experiences and get more on how the civic sector looks like in donor states or other beneficiary states. And as well, many of you keeps asking on what kind of documents are required. So do not worry for the first stage. So at the initial application, you just need the full name of your partner in English, city, country, website, and just the clarification why and justification why are you choosing this partner. That's for the first stage. The partnership declaration, the agreement will be required on the next steps, and we have templates for all of these documents, so you don't have to produce it on your own, and you can find already the template of the partnership declaration on our website. But as well, feel free to ask me on that. When it comes to regional actions, do not forget that you can have a partner from donor states, from Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein, but as well, you can have partners from other countries which are beneficiary states of EEA funds, called as Norwegian funds in informal way. So, feel free to as well establish cooperations with them. Here is the list. And as well, you can establish cooperation with neighboring countries for Poland, so Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. So do not forget about other possibilities. Of course, there are no extra money for this kind of cooperation with other beneficiaries, organizations from beneficiary states and from the neighboring countries, but still, I think this cooperation is worth to be taken. And as well, we are going to help you and with establishing cooperation with other countries from our regions. So the international cooperation does not mean only bilateral cooperation with donor states. So more about it later. The question that you are also keep asking to me, so where can I find a partner and where can I find the list of organizations from Norway, Iceland, or Liechtenstein, or other countries? So you can feel free to use all the websites here, but as well feel free to contact me. And I will try to help you after the first call for proposals on thematic projects. I have as well a bigger list of civil society organizations dealing with different activities, and hopefully each organization can find your best project partner. As well, follow our website and our social media websites. On Facebook, each Thursday we try to post information on bilateral cooperation, so in order to give you some kind of hints or inspirations, or on how you can establish a cooperation or how can you you search for partners, what kind of information should be mentioned in your first email to your future partner organizations, and so on. And the posts on Thursday, bilateral posts, are both in Polish and English. Okay, so that's all from my side. And now we still have 5 minutes before we will move to workshops to answer your questions. So do you have any questions to the sectoral projects call for applications? So to Andrzej, to Lydia, or to me, maybe on bilateral cooperation as well. Still we have 5 minutes, so if you want, you can as well ask this question in Polish, but of course we'll answer you in English, since the whole webinar is organized in this language. So are there any questions on bilateral cooperation or on the sectoral call for proposals? Magda asks us, is there a limit for the number of partners? Andrzej, Lydia, would you like to answer this question? I will make it visible for everyone. Sorry, can you hear me? Andrzej, Lydia, are you there? We have some technical issues, but
I was just writing
that.
I wrote that in case of sectoral projects, you may have two partner organizations. I wrote it on a chat.
Chat. Okay. So two partners. There's a limit of 2 partners. Okay. And are there any other questions?
There is question, what will happen between the first and the second period of the applications stages? Nothing special. We need some time for the assessment of the project outlines. And in both stages, we are using, of course, internal independent experts. Each application will be assessed by 3 experts, so we need time for formal assessment and then for evaluation done by experts. And of course, while the call will be open, we will be providing different forms of support. Andrzej has already mentioned, but basically we need this time for the assessment.
Thank you very much, Lydia. We still can answer one more question, and then we move to the break, and then to workshop part. Since we start at 11:45 we start our workshop part. Okay, see that our participants are preparing the questions, so are typing now in the chat. Okay, let's see their questions, and just while waiting for the questions, make sure that you know on which link you should click to join the workshop part. In case you have problems, contact me, but all the links were sent in the very first email, welcoming email, so you can always go back to this email and you can find links to each workshop.
And I would like to thank Ania Fedas for taking on her all organization of this meeting. She was very professional in it, so I would like to thank her very much for this. Thank you, Ania.
Thank you very much, but it's a pleasure. I'm happy that we could meet, even though it's online, so we can't organize it in person as we did in January this year. Okay, so since there are no more questions, so let's move to our coffee break, and then in 15 minutes, let's see each other in workshops. Make sure you know which workshops you are taking part, and don't and click on the right link. So see you there, and have a nice afternoon. In Warsaw, it's very sunny, so we have a beautiful spring now. So just take a few sunbeams and see you then. Bye. Thank you very much, and thank you, our wonderful speakers. You were the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.